the #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.
Good morning, guys, and welcome to episode 200 of Costa Rica Real Estate and Investments with me, your host, Richard Bexon. Incredible that we got to episode 200. I think back to probably, 2.5 years ago when I recorded episode 1. And I still haven't gone back and listened to it, to be honest with you. I'm sure it was very clunky, but hope you guys have been very much enjoying all these episodes of the podcast. I know there's a lot of information. I know quite a few of you have listened to every single one as well. So I appreciate all the support over the past couple of years, guys, in getting us to episode 200. I will continue to do these. I have no reason to stop. I'm enjoying doing it. It's great getting people on here and kind of highlighting and sharing that information as well. So guys, if you've enjoyed the podcast over these 200 episodes, please give us thumbs up, write us a review, and also pass the pod. Remember, guys, if you're looking to do anything here in Costa Rica, do let us know. We're happy to have a chat. In the link description down below, there's a link actually that you can use to contact one of the team here. It can be for moving to Costa Rica, relocation, building, development, investment. There's quite a few things that we do here. Again, it's free consultation. Feel free to chat with us and see how we can help you. And potentially you can help us as well. It's always great to just chat with people. Today's guest, guys, again, for the 200th episode, we have the honor of having Gustavo Segura on the podcast. If you don't know Gustavo, he was the former tourism minister who navigated us through the pandemic, helped open Costa Rica's borders, and leading to the amazing tourism kind of rebound that we had post-pandemic and also where we're at today. Currently, he's the CEO of Memorable Costa Rica, one of the country's leading travel companies. So today we're going to be getting his view on Costa Rica and its landscape for investors. So let's get straight into the podcast. Good morning, Gustavo. How are you doing?
Very well, Richard. Thank you very much for having me on your very much followed podcast.
Not at all, not at all. The pleasure is ours, Gustavo. It's an absolute honor to have you on here. When I was thinking, again, who to get on the 200th episode here, you jumped straight into my mind. And I was like, do you think Gustavo will do it or not? And then I chatted with Casey, who we both know, and he was like, I think Gustavo would love to be on it. So yeah, I reached out. So I appreciate you coming on. Well,
thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, Gustavo, let's jump into it. I mean, I think your viewpoint is very unique here, you know, having been involved in the government, but also in travel as well. I mean, you've been in tourism your whole career. And I think anyone that wants to read up on Gustavo can do. I'll provide your LinkedIn details in the description. But I mean, markets have had a somewhat good start to 2024. You know, real estate worldwide is starting to see a slowdown. And I think we're starting to see a little bit here in Costa Rica. But from a tourism point of view, I mean, what are you seeing happening?
Thank you, Richard. Well, I think I love the question because it's not very often that we stop and think there is such a close relationship between the model of tourism development that Costa Rica has had and not just real estate investment, but also foreign investment in general.
Yep.
I truly believe that our model of tourism, which let's just call it in general, a model of niche sustainable tourism, has had a major role in making Costa Rica a more attractive country for real estate and now technology investment, etc. So if you allow me, I'm going to refer to that a little bit. I think the model of sustainability of tourism in the country goes way beyond, you know, the mere fact of hotels and tour companies doing recycling or, you know, doing a good job in terms of their footprint. Don't get me wrong, that's crucial for the tourism model, but it goes way beyond that. Our model of tourism sustainability goes back, I think, to the last century when Costa Rica decided to abolish the army in 1948.
Yep.
And then it strengthened education and health. And for the future generations, it provided for the perfect platform for a mentality of social progress. All right. So with that in mind, why has Costa Rica been so open to international visitors and so friendly to international visitors? Well, it's because we have seen that with tourism coming to, let me just mention, San Carlos, Osa Peninsula, Turrialba, Monteverde, rural communities that 40, 50 years ago were struggling to see a better quality of life. When tourists started coming, those local communities started to see better roads, better schools, many more opportunities to have a great quality of life in their local community. So that has made Costa Ricans, I'm sorry, I turned off the camera there for a minute. That has made Costa Ricans, not just friendly, but we enjoy the contact and the relationship with international visitors. I think that situation has totally transpired into our civil life, into our day-to-day life. So that's one aspect of it. The other major aspect of it, I touched on it briefly, is that after 1948, when new schools came into the picture for public universities for such a small country, a general, accessible school system all the way from elementary to high school, and a general universal health system created later a vast platform of people that are interested in learning, interested in training themselves. So that's why you've seen in the last 20 years a switch in the development model of Costa Rica towards an open economy that attracts foreign investment, even in areas that are in the frontier of knowledge, such as technology, medical devices, etc. And that's because, again, this is a small country, but with enough quality engineers, quality accountants, quality managers, etc., that it is interesting for large, very reputable companies to come and set shop here. And then, of course, the third aspect comes right after the first two. After tourism developing and after foreign investment coming to Costa Rica, then real estate follows.
Yep.
With the needs that are produced, real estate has followed. And now we're seeing a very interesting surge of real estate innovation in the country, such as not just hotels, but hotels with real estate attached to it, communities with better amenities around them, etc. I think it's a wonderful relationship between the three things: tourism, foreign investment, and real estate.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think we're starting to, I did a presentation the other day, a webinar the other day where we were talking about, foreign direct investment here of Costa Rica being, I think in 2022 or 2023, being the #1 country for foreign direct investment. It was like for every $1 of GDP, $13.1 came in. And like, it's pretty incredible that a country that, is so small, and it was, there was United Arab Emirates there was Singapore, like these countries that have been around for a long period of time with a lot of money, and Costa Rica really hitting way above its rate on that foreign investment. But it's just interesting of being like, Michael, and then we were talking about arrivals of tourists and going, okay, Costa Rica has a goal of 2030 by being 5 million, which I'm like, God, that's pretty aggressive, guys. Of being from where we are to getting to 5 million. And my question is, does the country have enough hotels to manage that amount of people? And I don't think they do today, because you can see in December, January, February, March, like there is no space in hotels. So double the amount of tourists arriving, what does that do? Because hotels, we're not doubling the amount of inventory of hotels over the next couple of years.
No, I think you're touching into a very, very sensitive subject in which there is not a general agreed upon opinion in the industry.
Yep.
As opposed to 30 years ago, 25 years ago, I think we all agreed that our model should be niche, should be moderate growth.
Yep.
We should completely stay away from mass tourism, mass development. I think those models have worked very well for countries such as Dominican Republic, the south of Mexico, etc. But being the fact that Costa Rica is a much smaller geography, which much more biodiversity, and being the fact that the center of attraction has been the national park system, we cannot embrace mass tourism as a model.
I agree.
I always try to be careful when talking about this, because I'm not saying mass tourism is a bad model.
Yep.
What I'm saying is that it's not the right model for Costa Rica due to the fundamentals of the country. So I honestly think that moderate growth is what's fit for this country. It has been in the last 25 years. Our average growth has been 4 or 5% in arrivals, in tourism revenues. I would like it to stay that way.
I think
because
it will.
Otherwise, pardon me?
I think it will, Gustavo, and I'll tell you why in a minute, but finish your thought.
Okay. If we adopt a different system in which we accelerate growth, then it's going to completely affect the fundamentals. It's going to affect the quality of life. It's going to affect
the experience,
the national parks. I would rather stay as a niche market, even if we have to take the criticism of being an expensive destination, because that's what a niche market means.
Correct.
When you're mass market, you go for volume, you go for trying to reduce your costs by spreading your costs with volume. When you're a niche market, then it's less customers paying more, and that's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion.
Look, let's be Rolls-Royce, not Ford. I completely agree with that, with that statement. I think we don't have to worry, Gustavo. And the reason being is the water infrastructure and the infrastructure in beaches is so bad that there is no way that large hotels can come in here. And when they do the numbers, just for the permitting process and going through all that, it takes such a long period of time compared to other destinations. I think what we're seeing here now is just higher end, like Waldorf, Ritz-Carlton, one and only. That's the only models that can work here. What can't work here are like the Barcelos, not that there's anything wrong with that model. It just, the numbers don't work here,
Exactly.
So
they don't work. Yeah. They don't work in once again, I'm of a very strong opinion regarding this fact. I have had interesting discussions with colleagues that don't agree with me. I like this model. It's good enough to provide for interesting quality jobs.
Yep.
It feeds into other industries such as, semiconductors, technology, medical parts, etc. That's how Costa Rica should continue to be. Now, with that said, of course, we have our challenges. You're mentioning a very specific challenge that we have: water distribution in the coastal areas. Well, it's not a positive thing, but if that's what's preventing from larger investments coming and changing the model, then it's not such a bad thing after all.
Look, I think Costa Rica has a natural filter, dude. It's so difficult to get stuff done here sometimes that any bad ideas just don't get done a lot of the time, because it's not like, unless you really love this country and really see it, like, you're not going to push through that difficulty of doing like a project in Costa Rica. And I think anyone that's listening that's done a project or even something small understands what I'm talking about. It's like, it's never easy. But that's the beauty of Costa Rica. Like,
it's never easy. And having participated in a government position in the past, I can tell you that the conflicting concept there is that you want to make things more efficient. You want to make things easier for investment to happen and to happen in quality levels. You want to reduce red tape, and you want to make things better for everyone. But how do you do that at the same time as keeping the right model in place?
Yeah.
And it's a challenge.
Well, look, I mean, I think as long as Costa Rica sticks to those principles of being that boutique niche destination, I think we'll do fine. Why? It's so difficult to attack it, man. Like, if we try and compete with Mexico, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, we're going to get creamed. Like there's just, we can't compete. We can't. It's, again, if we're Rolls-Royce, there's no point of us competing with Ford. It just doesn't work.
It doesn't work. There is a market out there that want to go for a full week to a beach destination
Yep.
in a beautiful white sand beach with crystal clear blue waters. And for that, there are these large hotels that I mean, they might be very expensive and very luxurious, and that's great. I mean, there's a market for everyone, but Costa Rica is about something else. It's about providing an experience, not so much a hotel experience, but a full experience.
Yep.
And I love the numbers that go with it, Richard. I love the fact that on average, a tourist stays in Costa Rica for 12, 13, 14 days, as opposed to 4 or 5 days.
Yep.
I love the fact that they visit 4 or 5 locations instead of just one, because they spread their expenditure throughout the country. And it ends up going to many more small entrepreneurs, many more small businesses that provide for transportation, experiences, tours, food, than just a large investment that takes up everything.
Yeah.
So I'm completely in love with our model of development for tourism and how it impacts other areas.
I agree, and I'll fight for it, man. And I know you will, and so will other people. So yeah. Somebody made a comment the other day to me, which was a bit of a, I mean, I understood it was, hey, Rich, all this tourism investment is great, but you're driving locals out and they can't afford, to live in these areas now. And I'm like, well, I think that there is some merit to that, but also is, as they say here in Costa Rica, hay plata en el calle. There's money in the street now, if that makes sense. That like anyone that wants to start their own business or has an idea now revolving around that, there is a lot more opportunity in those areas. And you mentioned Monteverde, San Carlos, Turrialba. Like, I mean, those areas have just completely changed over the years for the better. Yes. For the better, I think.
I absolutely think so. I mean, it has been very well studied in universities, in papers, and in publications that with successful tourism development, along come the problems too.
Yep.
And problems such as, drug consumption, drug distribution, cost of living for a local person, even some models that didn't exist 10, 15 years ago, such as the platforms for shared space. I'm talking about Airbnb, VRBO, etc. They have an impact also on local living, because now it's very, very easy for someone who used to have an apartment and rent it to a local person now to rent it on a fractional level to an international visitor that's willing to pay more. So those are challenges. We just need to address them well. And with that, I would like to mention that, for instance, in my opinion, there's a great opportunity also in the real estate, not geared towards the super high end.
Yep.
If you go to Guanacaste, if you go to San Carlos, there's wonderful opportunity now for middle income housing.
Yep.
And, places that are maybe within 10, 15 miles of where the tourist wants to be and have the experience. Well, somebody can commute 20, 30 minutes to work if we had more development of those areas where locals can have a good quality of life, while at the same time understanding that, around the Arenal volcano, that's very valuable land and I can't live there. It is a challenge. Not everybody likes it. I mean, we're reading how Venezia in Italy right now, or Rome or Madrid, are starting to take measures to fight for mass tourism. But then those are massive destinations. That's why I really don't want to contribute it at any level with Costa Rica becoming a massive destination. We need to maintain our position as a niche market. But even like that, even as a niche market, I know that you talk to someone who works in Manuel Antonio at a mid-management level position, and they can't afford to live right in Manuel Antonio. I mean, they have to go look for housing in Quepos. Same thing with Arenal, La Fortuna, same thing with Monteverde. It is an effect of the successful results of even niche tourism, but we just need to address them well. That's my opinion.
Agree. Well, I mean, look, a positive way that I've seen some of it is people have started to rent their bedrooms out, say in La Fortuna. A family has a bedroom because a lot of people want to live with Costa Rican families and experience Costa Rican culture. When there's not tourism, that doesn't happen, if that makes sense. But it does. And now you get to understand other cultures. You also have an income. And like, again, I think if you're just receptive and open, ideas will come to you, or things and needs that people have. And I mean, we know tons of people, Gustavo, that have started their own businesses and have been very, very successful from tourism.
Yeah. And then and that's the other beauty of the model. And I keep going back to that word, the model of tourism. Well, people come here not for the beautiful white sand, blue water beach, because we don't have those.
Yep.
People come for the experience. And experience is something that changes every day. Culture changes every day. So it's beautiful to see how nowadays people want to experience, what it is that happens in Nicoya. Why is it called a blue zone? Why do people live to such old ages with good health? Well, there's a wonderful number of different things that you can design on a business level to experience that. Or dry forest or rainforest biodiversity. There's so much that we can do. And then there's another whole level, Richard, that I wanted to bring up. It's being coined as not sustainable tourism, but regenerative tourism. That is a whole different area, which also comes from a problem, comes from the fact that we're suffering global warming, because we haven't, as human race, done a good job in the last 100, 200 years on keeping our planetary home in good shape.
Yep.
Now, problems, as usual, are bringing opportunities. And I personally think that Costa Rica is kind of a laboratory country in many areas.
Yep.
We can also be a laboratory country for regenerative development, not just tourism, but regenerative communities, regenerative cultures, and that opens a whole new array of ideas that we can use as businesses to make a better living. So,
what do you think of the areas of Costa Rica over the next 10 years are going to receive the most investment, Gustavo? It's just your opinion.
Well, this concept of development zones, we usually call them free zones because of the taxing advantages, but I see them more as development zones. I would love for the coastal and rural areas to get more of those investments. I mean,
I agree.
Most of it has been concentrated in the Central Valley, in particular in that Coyol near the airport area. So I really want to see more investment come to rural communities, but for that, we truly need to work on our education system. I mean, as beautiful as it was that so many resources went into education after the abolition of the army, I also think that the pandemic left us with a hurt education system. We need to rethink our education system, reinvest in it, and go back to wonderful elementary and secondary schools that are more technical oriented in rural areas.
Yep.
So that people get the opportunity to work on the kind of investment that comes with free zones, or provide services as entrepreneurs to those free zones. But I truly think that with the nearshoring trend that we're seeing, and the fact that we still have very good quality of labor, if you will, if you want to call it like that, or in general education level, by improving it, we're going to make sure that much more investment comes to the rural and coastal areas of Costa Rica.
What do you think? I've always, Case and I chat about this a lot of, I was actually chatting with Jim Damaris the other day of, what about free trade zones for tourism in areas that is high in employment, that look, we seem to be giving all this, benefits to a lot of big companies to come here. But if the DNA of this country is niche, how do we create these areas, all these benefits to niche, sustainable investors looking to invest in tourism, which I think we can agree is part of the future of this country? How do we encourage that? Because at the moment, it's not really encouraged, if that makes sense. Sometimes
it's not encouraged.
Quite the opposite.
It's very puzzling because there is a law now in effect that was passed in 2021 that encourages the development of tourism-free zones called, I mean, the name is tricky because it's called Tourism Sustainable Theme Areas. I mean, you might fall into the risk of calling them theme parks, you know, and it's not that. If you read the law, first, it has to be out of the Central Valley, so it has to be coastal or rural areas. Second, it has to be geographically concentrated. But three, it has to have solid, sustainable foundations. So now we have the legislation in place to move towards that kind of a concept that you mentioned, Richard. But I don't think as a country we're doing enough to promote that specific law that is in effect right now. So I think we have the tools now.
I think it's no different than what Italy did with ecoturismo, which was there are tons of people living in these cities. Our countryside has a lot of this beauty and this outside, which is the, like, again, the DNA of Italy, if you know what I mean. Like, cities are great, but really the people are always in the country. Of like, okay, guys, we'll give you like low interest loans. You can go out and buy these buildings, but you have to use everything locally as well. And you have to employ everything locally, you know, and they gave them breaks after breaks after breaks in order to do that. So you have this whole network of these ecoturismo models in Italy. I would love to see a little bit more of that in Costa Rica. And it sounds like the foundation is there. It's just that the pieces quite haven't come together.
Yeah. And there's a whole area in which private investment can also be of great help. You know, I've always had this motto of when I participated in board of directors of private sector chambers. I was the vice president of the Hotel Association at some point. You know, I always called upon my colleagues to say, let's not just complain about what the government isn't doing, but let's also come up with ideas on what we can do to cover those shortcomings. Because in the end, this is a developing country. This is not a rich country yet. I mean, it can become, but we're not. So by promoting that in these areas where you can have investment that uses local sourcing, etc., do a few more things. Let's say, you know, you have to open up a school. You have to, you know, go beyond the basic level and provide English education, language education, technology, alphabetization, etc. You can use those tools to foster investment. I think the private sector has a huge role to play, and it's like a new level of corporate social responsibility. You know, it's not just. It's beautiful when I see employees of a company go paint a school. That's great, but doesn't change the life of the kids going to that school. It's going way beyond very specific efforts in doing truly corporate social responsibility.
It's funny, I was in Dominicalito the other day. I hadn't actually been through the town. Like, I'd kind of been around there, but like driving past, and I was in there with one of the locals there, and he was just telling me about everything they'd done in that area for the kids and the schools. And they have a community center now, and they clean up the roads. And like, you know, I was like, I mean, literally just off the main highway, you can go and see that. And, you know, the client I was with ended up actually like loving that story and made an offer on a piece of land there to be like, I want to be part of that community.
Yes.
Yeah, it was just interesting, like how, you know, the community got together to do it.
I tell you, it's the magic that happens. It's beautiful. I'm going to mention the example of the company that I have the honor of being the CEO of Memorable Travel Group. And this is a company that needs intensive human resources. We're not intensive in capital, in assets. We're intensive in service, and services, you know, thank God, still provided by humans. And we have a large chunk of our business happening in Guanacaste, and we're seeing a lack of good education, technical education in Guanacaste. So again, we started a program in which, instead of doing very punctual efforts, we decided to go and team up with the Sardinal Technical School. It's a high school that graduates technical level students, and we're strengthening their programs for English language, soft skills, and technological alphabetization. And then a fourth one, which is, in general, the knowledge of tourism, because Sardinal is in the middle of the action that's happening right now. It's within 10 miles of the new Ritz-Carlton, the new Waldorf Astoria, the new Discovery Project, Papagayo Peninsula, etc., etc. So those kids are seeing things happening in front of their eyes that are mind-blowing. It's world-class investment coming to their home. And so we're trying to help them be better prepared to reap the benefits of that. Not just having a good job, which is great, but opening your eyes beyond that and being able to provide services that can make them become entrepreneurs and develop true wealth. And I'm not saying they need to be super rich, but true wealth to have a better quality of life. The government right now is not filling those gaps. So as a company, we decided to do our part. And this is not just one-off effort. It's an effort that takes the whole year. It's a program with KPIs in which all of the management of our company participates, and we can do it by ourselves. We also need to, coordinate with the local Ministry of Education authorities, the authorities of the school themselves, and most importantly, the parents of the kids attending the school. And we see beautiful things happening now. So I wanted to mention that because I'm experiencing that myself here in Memorable.
Well, good for you, man. I mean, I think there's nothing more fulfilling than seeing, other people succeed. I always say, and people have heard it a lot, the tide rises, all boats rise. And I think that's our job. And I think that's something unique here in Costa Rica is there is a tendency between tourism to band together, when necessary and see that tide rise. And I think we definitely saw that during the pandemic, and you kind of led that flag running into that one for us, Gustavo. So the country, owes you a debt of gratitude for that. So thank you for that. But I mean, just going back to areas, what areas of Costa Rica do you think over the next 10 years will see the most development?
Okay. Yeah, I didn't specifically answer that. Well, thank you for the comment of my role in the pandemic, but
we couldn't have done it without you, buddy. We could not have done it without you.
Thank you so much. It was truly an honor, and it was a wonderful way for me to pay back a little bit of all the wonderful things that the industry has given me and my family for so many years. Specific areas. Well, I would love to see areas that are close enough to the hotspots developed so they can alleviate the demand pressure for the hotspots. Let me give you an example. Manuel Antonio is under a lot of pressure, a lot of demand pressure, and you see it now when you go into the national park. It's not such a beautiful experience anymore. So I would love to see the south coast of Costa Rica, Dominical, Uvita, that area developing more as a way to take some pressure off of Manuel Antonio. In that regard, I think Osa Peninsula is going to be more and more on the spot. I truly want Osa Peninsula to remain low-key, low demand level, because it is particularly fragile in terms of biodiversity. Then we've been mentioning La Fortuna. Well, the phenomenon that Arenal volcano created 25 years ago has moved into the fact that people are now discovering that we have such a beautiful experience as well near the Miravalles volcano, the Tenorio volcano. So that area is now called Tapir Valley because there's a large population of tapirs that you can see in that area. I think there's going to be more activity coming to that Tapir Valley area as an extension of the experience that you have in La Fortuna. And I hope it reaches Los Chiles in San Carlos, because that's also an area that is beautiful and has amazing biodiversity, but it's in great need for human development as well.
I agree.
And then there's Guanacaste as a huge province with a lot of concentration of development in Papagayo and Tamarindo, when you have northern Guanacaste just as beautiful and southern Guanacaste just as beautiful as well. And then I'm going to mention Limon. Limon has its own challenges that are different than the rest of the country. I think Limon, in order to develop, needs an international airport that works. It does have an international airport. The Limon airport has international level category, but airlines don't fly there because there's a lot of risks of flooding when
Yep.
it rains. The airport is in a place where flooding happens. So I truly think that we need once and for all a development plan for Limon that, along with an airport, then the investment will come and we will see more opportunities for Limon because it's a beautiful area full of beautiful people that still does not enjoy the benefit of tourism development. And that's where the bad guys,
Yep.
fill in the blanks.
Yep.
I really would love to see Limon embracing future with a better outcome.
I agree. Quite a few people are like, "Hey, Rich, why don't you cover more of, Puerto Viejo, Cahuita, and everything?" And I'm like, well, I mean, I would if anyone wants to come on the podcast and chat about it. We just don't see that much demand for it compared to the Pacific. It all comes down to risk and return, and like the risk is a little higher, the returns can be good, and they've been getting better. I mean, we've started to see these mid-level hotels, as Agua Claras, kind of start to come through and grab those ADRs, but it still is a lot of, $100, sub $100 a night. So as an investor, you're like, I could do that, or I could do the Pacific area, or like a developed area where the risk is lower, my returns are a little bit better. And like, you have to really love that area to want to invest in that area.
You have to love it. I believe that, for instance, as a DMC, I'm trying to promote much more the experiences of that area because first, it's super rich in culture. It's a different culture. It's the Caribbean Costa Rican. It's the Caribbean Costa Rican that has been influenced by the arrival of Jamaican people 300 years ago. So it's a different flavor of food. It's a different style of life. I love our Limon province. But at the same time, it has the largest challenges for social progress in the country, and it makes up for more risky investment. But in terms of experience, it's one of the most beautiful areas in the country. I would really like to see more development come to Limon.
I agree. Yeah, I always say that it's like mixing Costa Rica and the Caribbean into like a cocktail mix and shaking it up. I mean, it's truly unique. And for people sometimes are like, Rich, I've kind of done the beaches. I've done Monteverde and Arenal. Where else should I go? I'm either like, you need to go to the Dota, like, Pérez de León area, San Isidro, Chiripo, or go to Limon, or do both. There's just, the connection is just a little difficult sometimes as well.
Yeah. And then the other area that we're beginning to see more action on is the coffee country of Costa Rica, right? You just mentioned Dota. There are some local coffee farms that are now internationally famous for the quality of product that they develop. And new, very innovative and creative experiences are coming to the area. And I know very well the Copay winery estate, for instance.
We have a great winery now.
It's amazing. And you go to that place and you see something world-class going on there as an experience in an area that is dramatically beautiful in terms of the location. The people in those areas are super clean people, honest, hardworking, beautiful people. So that's another area where I would love to see more investment come. There are some flagship projects there already in the Santa Maria de Lota, and Quetzal country, as I call it as well. But that's another area that deserves much more investment. There's plenty of opportunity.
I'm doing a yurt project in San Gerardo de Lota, which is my passion project, because I have no cell phone reception on my land, which I love. If I walk 200 meters out, I get it. But as I get older, I'm like, and I speak to a lot of investors. They're like, well, Rich, I kind of just want a place to escape to. I'm like, am I correct in saying that you want a place where you can be present and your cell phone doesn't work? And they're like, yeah, that's exactly what I want. And that's one of the areas where it's just, that whole mountain range is spectacular.
It's just, it's amazing. And truth be said, it's not as difficult to get as other parts of the country.
I agree.
Within, if you're in San Jose, within 90 minutes, you're there in the Copay Estate Winery, or in San Gerardo, or in, all that beautiful coffee country. And that's another area where I think this law that I mentioned earlier of geographic out of the Central Valley tourism investment concepts can really have an impact on local social progress.
I agree. Well, Gustavo, I've kept you long enough. This has been amazing. But my last question for you, sir, which I love to ask everyone. If you inherited $500,000 and you had to invest it into a business or into real estate or tourism here in Costa Rica, what would you invest it in and why?
Wow, that's a tough one. But right now we're seeing a surge into a particular kind of tourism that mixes, I don't want to say specifically the word luxury, but it's high-level tourism.
Yep.
With a true interest in the experience, in the sustainable local experience. So I wouldn't say invest in luxury tourism in the all model, because those tourists that we're seeing coming to Costa Rica have luxury in their homes, understood as,
Yep.
I don't know, marble floors in their restroom. I would say invest in experiences geared toward the highly educated visitor that really wants a rich, living opportunity, a rich cultural, natural experience in Costa Rica. It's a market that's growing. I mean, it's going to be spurred even further with the arrival of these brands, Ritz-Carlton, Waldorf, etc. Those are brands, by the way, that add value to the country because they come and do tourism the Costa Rican way.
Yep.
It's not a Ritz in a Caribbean island. It's a Ritz in Guanacaste. Well, and it do it the local way.
This country, unfortunately, there only is one way, which is the Costa Rican way. Like, do not try and swim against that current because it will take you away. Yeah.
So in that regard, I would invest in providing services to those new, trendy investments that are here to stay, in my opinion.
I agree. Well, Gustavo, as I said, this has been an honor and an absolute pleasure to get you on the podcast. For anyone that wants to learn more about Gustavo, I'll put all of his details in the description down below. But very much appreciate you joining us on the 200th episode, sir.
Thank you. Congratulations on this effort that you're doing because it helps all of us educate ourselves better, have a broader international mindset, which is very important, and keep doing what you're doing for the industry, Richard. Thank you, and I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. Bye. Hope you enjoyed that podcast there with Gustavo Segura. As you can see, his viewpoint on Costa Rica, its brand, and what it should continue to do, stay focused on, and its values, I think is very, very important when considering any investment here in Costa Rica. It's music to my ears and what I would say the majority of us believe here when, again, investing, developing, and doing tourism here in Costa Rica rather than mass production, sticking to more of a boutique niche kind of environment. I think his idea of developing in some of these unknown areas as well that are kind of up and coming. We mentioned a few of them in some of these areas, kind of the outskirts of Arenal, even Monteverde, around even Samara, moving to Samara, Garza, Palau, around Nosara, Avellanas around Tamarindo, kind of those areas. I think, there's going to be a lot of opportunity there in the coming months and years for sure. So, well, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. If anyone would like a free consultation on investing, developing, buying real estate here in Costa Rica, I think anyone that, I always ask people when we're out on kind of tours with them, what was your expectation and what was the reality? And they were just like, wow, I just didn't realize I was going to get this education and also this viewpoint and see a wide variety of properties. And also have someone, representing me and looking out for my interests here in Costa Rica. I mean, it can be very lucrative and very fruitful, an investment here in Costa Rica. But again, I think it depends on the team that you have on it. And I'm not just saying us, it's anyone. And just always make sure someone else is on your side of the transaction and that incentives are aligned, meaning that, again, it's that I say incentives in line, make sure someone's working for you and that you've hired them. Again, this is a great country. Just there are things that happen here, as many of you are aware, and many of you have spoken to us about, that are a little untoward. So you can email us info@investingcostarica.com, info@investingcostarica.com, or in the description down below, or you can just type in my name, Richard Bexon, Bexon online. And again, you do also get to talk to me as well. If not, someone else in my office here. We have great people here with tons of experience. Until the next podcast, guys, thanks very much for listening, and roll on episode 201.
The #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.